How's it going, Critter Family? I hope you all are doing well. Today we're going over a recent suggestion by Miracle Canine Dog Training. Petrified rescues won't walk at all, and how we fixed it. So they say they fixed it. I don't see much of a fix at all. I think it's just I don't see any progress at all, but that's just my opinion. We're going to go over it. It is a long video, but we're just going to go over the first little bit because the rest of it is just him walking the dogs back and forth between his two buildings, or I don't know, he has multiple buildings apparently, so he's just doing a bunch of walking back and forth, but for the most part I'm just going to be reacting to the beginning part where he says that where he shows that he's working on them and how he supposedly fixes them. So of course, if you do send a suggestion and I'm harsh on the trainer, that has nothing to do with you. If you like this person or anybody else likes, whoever they suggest that I look at, this is just my opinion. I have a very high standard for trainers, or people who call themselves trainers, because there's no accountability held to these people. Like, he's nowhere near Dog Daddy, but I don't know. I haven't seen him behind closed doors. I mean, I haven't seen a lot of his work anyway, but I mean, Dog Daddy's just an idiot because he just blatantly abuses animals, but people love it. People subscribe to that. People pay him to abuse their dog, and then they support it. So this is just how I see things. I'm trying to speak for the dogs. But if you like this guy, go subscribe, go check him out. He's Miracle Canine Dog Training. If you like what I'm doing, then of course you're very much appreciated to subscribe or like or comment or just leave your own thoughts on this. So with all that out of the way, if you're ready, then let's get started.
Man, they're a couple little guys.
And how he fixed it. Right? That's what he says, is he fixed it. So first off, these dogs are terrified.
Yeah.
So having a camera person may or may not really may not help in this situation. We have, someone moving around with the camera. They could be that much more intimidating to the dogs. The dogs are both very fearful.
Oh, really?
I mean, they're just...
Yeah.
So I want you to see how the dogs react. They're already nervous. They're reacting to the pressure on the leash. And before I get into a tangent, if you want to see the original, please watch the original before I go into all these long starts and stops. If you would prefer to watch it in whole, go watch it yourself first and then come back here and you can check out what I have to say about it. So here we have the dogs already reacting to the pressure on the leash, going into opposition reflex. When they feel tension pulling them somewhere, they're automatically going to fight it. That's just natural. It's an instinct. We don't think about it. If I was behind you and trying to push you forward into oncoming traffic or off a cliff or just from behind, chances are you're going to fight it. It's just an instinct. So we can teach dogs to give into pressure very lightly. Kikopup has a great video, a couple of demonstrations. I'll leave those links in the description below. I always leave a link of how I teach loose leash walking in the description as well, and Zach George even spoke about it. So there's plenty of ways to teach your dog to not be fearful. Part of that is also when you're approaching a dog, this guy is going to be putting a lot of pressure on these dogs. So watch how the dogs react as he walks towards them. He's not trying to necessarily be intimidating, but he is. Just his presence. So even, it doesn't matter what your intentions are, it matters what you do. The dogs don't care if you're trying to help, they just care that you're scaring them. So the dogs are here, they're already fighting. He's laughing at them.
With one of them?
He asks if they want help, and the more he approaches, this dog is cowering and trying to get as far away from him as possible under this car. I know it's cold out, but he has a big puffy jacket. He has bright colors on. I mean, I know dogs can really see things in like the hues of like the yellow and blue, better, but he could still be very scary. He has something in his hand. I'm not saying these dogs were ever beaten. They were rescued apparently from some kind of very small island. I believe they're called, I almost said Kikopup dogs, but that's Starbucks on mine. But something pot cake dogs, something like that. But either way, very, very nervous. And in this case, if I'm approaching a dog and they're backing away, I'm going to stop my approach because you can have spatial pressure that makes the dog nervous. When you're approaching something that is fearful, stop approaching. because you're going to get this reaction. So if he is a trainer worth anything worth his salt, then he should know, don't just drag, you can tell how he might train based on how he interacts with the dog in this state. He's not even, he's teaching them. He may not realize it, but they're learning to be afraid of him. They're learning he's ignoring their fearful signals. And even their owner is too. I mean, he may be a great guy, he's trying to help them, but he leaves them to a board and train who uses force and other intimidation tactics. So it doesn't matter what you try, what you want to do, that you're trying to help, the dogs care what you do.
Sure.
So he just automatically goes in and says, how here, do you want me to help you? I mean, yes, I would offer to help someone too, but if I see that they're freaking out that much, I would back away. I would say, okay, let's work something out. Let's work out a different plan. If you want to park closer to the door, we can go inside. I mean, for me, I wouldn't have these dogs at a training facility anyway. I wouldn't have them at a board and train. I would work in the home. And I've worked with dogs like this. I've worked with completely feral dogs, meaning that they're not used to humans. I've worked with plenty of dogs like this without ever taking hold of a leash or cornering them or taking them to, I would never expect to take them into my home.
There we go.
I do like that the owner does have the double leash
Is she the
system.
more fearful of the two?
I don't like that he's trying to fix them, but he's like hanging the dog by her collar, just to fix the leash. He's so focused on getting the dogs inside. Neither of them are focused on the dog's emotional state and what they need right now. So you're going to see this guy really focused on one thing. He is focused on getting these dogs to walk on a leash. That is it. He doesn't care about trust. He doesn't care about making the dogs comfortable. I know we haven't even got there yet. Just hang on. There's a reason. There's a method to my madness. There's a reason why I go on these long tangents, because in just this short moment, there's so much going on. He's putting pressure on the dogs. He's making them nervous. The owner is pulling on them. I do like that he does have 2 leashes. He has a harness on, and he has a harness on both of these dogs. And in a minute, those harnesses are gone, because this dummy doesn't know how to train a dog without using pain and force and intimidation. So he has a collar and a harness and 2 leashes, so he's working with 4 leashes, but I do appreciate that they are fearful dogs, that he does have the backup system. He has them on martingales. Love it. Nice. It looks like a cloth martingale. There's no chain in it. Here we have, a lip lick. These dogs are just fighting.
Here, how about the...
So he
he's got
says
a martingale collar on right
the
now,
male
right?
dog, you can see the whale eyes from here. The owner says the male dog is more aggressive. And in my mind, that means that he reacts out of fear. He will, if you push him far enough, he will bite. Or try to. I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with the dog or the dog is bad. But if you push the dog enough, he will act out to defend himself. The female dog, as you can see, she's as far away from him as she can be. I'm, tail tucked. I would not be trying to take this dog's leash unless I was just there to hold them for a moment to keep them from running away and getting hurt. But I'm not going to be putting any pressure on this dog. I'm not going to be, trying to drag her anywhere. This guy still has a tight leash on her. I mean, he doesn't even think that he could loosen it and she might still sit there because she's by what she has as a draw, which is her owner and her brother.
Yeah, both of them do.
Okay, perfect. Let's do this so they don't slip out of the collar.
So again, he's just sitting here. The dog's flailing around, ignoring it. He ignores that because that's how he trains. If it were me, I would be moving, sideways into the dog, not trying to scare them. I mean, there's a number of ways you can handle this. But if they're trying to flail, I'm going to move into them or try to loosen that leash and give them more leash so they don't go into that fight or flight. And right now, she's trying to run. She can't run, so she's fighting the leash. Oh my gosh.
Let's go ahead and...
Dude, just honestly, he could let go of the leash. She wouldn't go anywhere because this is her draw. She's not going to run down the street.
I can put one in the car.
Yeah, let's do that. Yeah, just to keep it a little low pressure to start here.
A little low pressure. It's already gone crazy, dude. You already show lack of understanding of how to work with any fearful animal, in my opinion. So the owner has the genius idea to put one of them in the car. Terrific. So he could take the other one in, and I believe he carries them in one at a time.
Yeah.
Man, you weren't kidding about them being these little scaredy cats.
Oh,
And again, name calling. That he says little scaredy cats. You weren't kidding. No. I know that probably doesn't make a big difference to a lot of people, but to me, these are little things I pick up on about how a trainer really works. He's not even trying to comfort the dog in any way.
All right, yeah, let's go ahead and we'll get him over there.
Poor little guy. I mean, I appreciate that the owner is certainly trying. You know, he's at least trying to keep him as
I'm
comfortable
assuming
as
you've
possible.
taken them some new places, and they're generally like this anytime you get them somewhere new, or yeah.
Well, then that's your problem, is that you're trying. You think it's, you know, this guy, everybody else has just a one-track mind. We are trying to socialize this dog. The dog doesn't even know how to walk on leash, is not comfortable in any other situation. That's not where you start. You start with trust. You start with the dog being comfortable on leash. You start with the dog being comfortable with pressure on the leash, so that way they don't fight. And then you slowly work your way out to these more and more populated areas. You don't just take your dog and throw him out into a number of different situations. That's called flooding, overstimulation.
But like on the island,
Yeah.
I would just take them to places where people work.
Yeah, sure. And they were fine.
So he said that on the island, he would just take them to where places people were. Well, if it's like a wild dog or a stray dog, that's not going to help them. I mean, because they don't have the ability to run away or get release of pressure when they want to. People are going to be looking at them. It could be noisy. The dogs don't choose where they go and for how long they stay. When the human does that, that's where we have problems. He thinks he's trying to help them, but he's really making them worse.
And outside of situations like that, like outside of seeing other people, or
Yeah, and even seeing people, they would, as long as they didn't get approached,
yeah,
they weren't too bad.
understood.
So what he says is in his eyes, his filter of just, you know, being oblivious, you know, in all honesty, in his eyes, as long as they weren't being approached, they weren't too bad. So these are all red flags of just being, you're not helping these dogs. If you go to an island like this or whatever, you rescue a stray, even here in the States, if you rescue a stray or you rescue a dog or you adopt a dog, whatever it is, and you try to socialize them, you just take them places, and you don't see the red flags, the warning signs, and then they end up like this, it's your fault. That doesn't mean that you're a bad person or I think you're a bad owner, but you have to take accountability. You have to accept, I don't know what I'm doing. I just took them here. I screwed them up. And then you want to send them to somebody else to, you know, abuse them or in the name of training or just be cruel and forceful because you see it as the dog's problem when it's the human's problem that started all of this to begin with. So before you even decide to take a case like this or you know, as a trainer or an owner adopting a dog, you need to take accountability and do the slightest bit of research and say, okay, what are dog calming signals? How does a dog look when they're nervous? You know, don't just go to a trainer and drop them off at a board and train and say, okay, it's not my problem. They're getting trained for me because this person knows more than I do. You need to know what you're doing because the dogs are living with you. You spend the most time with them. There's no excuse.
Here, let's do this. Why don't you hand me him?
So
I'll
harnesses are off because this dummy doesn't know how to work with a dog without a harness. God
take
forbid.
his leash from you.
They're comfortable.
Thank
He
you.
immediately just takes the leash. So the dog barks at him and starts freaking out, and he immediately tightens the leash and goes to start correcting the dog. Trying to act all tough, show the dog who's boss, blah, blah, blah. I don't like it. I wouldn't. I think he has a fat head, as in like a big head, big ego. This is not how I would work. But this guy is already smiling, thinking, hey, he's making progress. It's not about the results, people. It's about how you get those results. Those are so much more important to know. It's so much more important to know how you get the results than just the results themselves. I mean, this guy anybody here could beat the dog with a chair. They could tase them with a cattle prod. He could whip them. He could tie them up. Or he could use treats, understanding, not even touching them, a mixture of both, whatever. But if the dog, regardless, the dogs will show some progress. In his case, they're going to be showing that they're shut down, but people still just see the progress. And in a new video of Augusto, he's on the news, and there's a client. He says, "I have a vicious dog here. She screwed up the dog. She's labeling the dog vicious. And she says, I need help. I can't do anything. And then after working with Augusto for 4 hours, while he mentally exhausts and abuses this animal, then she says, I think it was great. Because the dog is laying there shut down and calm. It's just mentally exhausted. She says, I thought it was great. Well, she's an idiot. And so is Augusto. Because she doesn't realize she's the problem. This guy is the problem. This guy is the problem. Humans are the problem. And again, that doesn't mean that you can't learn. I've been the problem with my own Shiba, and I've accepted that. I've made so many mistakes, but you know what? I owned up to it, and I said, okay, I'm not doing it right. Let me try something else. Let me not just blindly follow somebody who says and acts like they know what they're doing. And just because they get results, that's all that counts.
I know. You gotta cool the jets, buddy.
So he would cool the jets, dumbass, if you wouldn't be pulling on him and making him more fearful. He went up for a sniff, and as soon as he did, he pulls up on the leash because he's afraid the dog's going to bite him because he's causing all of this. I wouldn't even have the dog on a leash. I mean, I would let them drag the leash and just walk around. The first thing you work on is trust, not leash walking.
He said, don't come near my sister. Hold on.
No, he said, don't choke me. He says, don't put pressure on me. Don't drag me to you. He's laughing, but this dog is shut down. And then there's a big cut. How long did he work with that dog? Because now he's working with the female dog. And look at how this dog looks. Whale eyes still. Whale eyes are when the dog shows the whites of their eyes. Lip licks mean that they're licking their lips. Those are both signs of stress in a dog. Whale eyes are extreme stress. He has a closed, short mouth. His ears are back. These dogs are not comfortable and do not trust him.
Outside, these dogs are, they're in rough shape right now. Right?
So he's going to be working with them for an hour. I would work with them maybe for 30 minutes, just being in the room. I would just go sit down on the floor by the wall. And I would just toss some treats around and I wouldn't look at them. I would let them come up. I mean, I've done this time and time again with dogs in a shelter, dogs in an owner's home, someone who rescued feral dogs or street dogs, dogs that have come from, the dog meat trade, dogs that have come from Korea, all over the place. The dogs have come from all over the place. Unfortunately, I haven't been all over the place, but, I first work on trust. I don't even need to work on the leash skills. That comes way later.
Very, very fearful, very underexposed to stuff. This is very common for the breed. So these are pot cake dogs. They actually just flew in from the island of Turks and Caicos yesterday, and they were at a pot cake rescue out there. The breed generally tends to be very genetically quirky. They tend to be very, very underexposed, especially when you give
Okay, so when he says genetically quirky, I would, again, he's using silly words. I would say that they're just, aloof. They're aloof, like a Shiba, other breeds. They're probably not a big fan of strangers. But he doesn't care because he only has one tool in his toolbox, which is force, and he sees every problem as a nail.
Life versus real life, right? And they do not know how to handle their fear, right? They
do not know how to handle their fear because everyone around them has ignored them. So he puts the problem on the dog. The dog needs to learn how to handle their fear. He puts the accountability on the dog when it should be the human. Every human that these dogs have been with for a long enough period of time, every human that's interacted with them has failed them. No one has ever actually taught the dog how to handle their fear by saying, you can trust me. I'm not going to hurt you. I'm not going to scare you. Even though he's using a regular martingale leash, he's not necessarily physically harming the dogs, but psychologically and emotionally, he is damaging these dogs.
They are big-time flight risk dogs. They have no idea how to behave themselves on a leash unless in their mind.
Again, behave themselves on a leash.
They want to go wherever it is that they're going.
He's painting the picture like they're just spoiled kids. They have no idea how to behave on a leash unless they're going where they want to go. Which is probably running away. Not that they want to go have fun, but that they're running away from something that stupid humans have forced them into. You put them in a situation and they want to run away and find safety. And people, for whatever reason, can't decipher that from a dog trying to run away or sniff something. There's nothing wrong with a dog just being able to walk around and sniff as long as they're not pulling. Sniff walks are great for a dog. I don't see that. I see these dogs as just being terrified, and nobody... I mean, it's not rocket science. Like, how do you ignore this kind of stuff? I mean, we're taught to ignore this kind of stuff because as kids growing up, if we're fearful, you know, a lot of times adults tend to get mad at us and tell us, you know, oh, toughen up, or you know, oh, stop crying, or, you know, all that tough coach nonsense BS.
And we have essentially no communication to start here with them. So what we need to do is, just like I was doing with 7 just a little bit ago.
And their names are, I think, 6 and 7 or 7 and 8, which you really can't give them a different name other than that, really. It makes it easier to distance yourself and just see them as like a product number. You know, like you know, on a pig or a cattle farm, number 2738 is going to slaughter today. You know, whatever. It just, which I think is cruel anyway. I mean, so he's going to talk about communication using the leash. The leash doesn't mean diddly squat. Communication, they're communicating to you and you're not listening. You don't even know. It's the blind leading the blind. You don't know their communication. The owner guy, I'm assuming he's the owner, maybe Foster, whatever, he didn't know communication with them.
Start establishing some really, really baseline leash communication. And at this
you don't
point,
need to.
Because of how low on like the totem pole they're starting as far as genetic soundness and stuff, I'm not even worried about any sort of tools right now.
Because he knows if he were to put a prong collar on these dogs, they would scream and fight because it hurts. And they're already afraid of just a regular leash. So they would scream and shut down much faster. You don't need a tool anyway, especially not a fearful dog. I mean, when I learned in school, it should be common sense. You don't ever use, you know, prong collars, choke chain, shock collar, star mark collar, slip lead corrections on an aggressive dog or a fearful dog. But specifically those two behaviors, because it makes the behaviors worse. Go figure. Again, it's not rocket science.
This is a basic leash communication.
I would work on trust. You don't even need the leash to drag her towards you if you have trust from her.
We need to start establishing with these.
You don't need to start establishing it.
Getting as far away from each other as possible.
He's trying to get as far away from you as possible.
Sitting on top of each other, climbing all over each other, stuff like that.
So he wants to separate them because they're the only thing that comforts each other.
We gotta start getting some work done here. So all I'm doing right now is I need to get these dogs walking on a leash.
No, you don't. You really don't. If you get the slightest bit of trust, they will follow you. I mean, again, they're not. If you have trust, they're not going to run away. I mean, you can get them walking on a leash, but not in the first hour. That's just stupid. And he's just constant pressure. She's fighting it.
Scared of something. Fighting and thrashing works. I need them to realize that moving with the leash is actually the only thing that accomplishes relieving that pressure.
Jesus, you're an idiot, dude. I mean, seriously? She's only walking with him because the brother is with her. If he were to walk, the male seems to be doing better with leash than she does. So if he were just to drop her leash, or even hold on to her leash but walk the brother on the leash, she would learn leash skills and not pull because she has the brother there. But he's too stupid to think about that or to realize that. Or he's too full of ego and ignorant and he doesn't care. He has a one-track mind. He's going to get, by George, he's going to get these dogs walking on a leash within the first hour of training or the first day. You didn't fix squat, dummy. You just force them and drag them around. It's called flooding. He doesn't know what he's doing, or if he does, he doesn't care. He just cares about results. He's not impressive by any stretch of the imagination.
We could start getting some sort of baseline communication skills out.
I would rather have baseline communication with body language, trust with the dog, showing them I understand your way of communicating. When you have a low tail or a tucked tail or a rounded top line, your spine is tucked, your ears are back, you have whale eyes and you're lip licking, I'm not going to look at you, I'm not going to make eye contact, I'm going to be over here, I'm going to be sitting on the floor over here and just chilling and tossing treats around. Or, again, I wouldn't have them in a facility. these lights can be changing. There could be lights and shadows. It could give them a headache. It could change the way they see things. It could make them more spooky. This is just not a good scenario for them at all.
So I'm doing this individually. Obviously, I did a little bit of it with him. He seemed to do very well. I'm going to do a little
Why
bit
didn't you
with
show
her.
that? You
Now,
cut that part
additionally,
out.
I'm keeping both of these dogs out together with each other as I work. Now, there's a couple reasons for that.
Pressure, 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 pressure. If you're using pressure and release in the proper manner, this is too much pressure. If the animal starts fighting it, you don't continue pressure. I'm going to leave a link of Kikopup, of her pressure and release in the description below. I'm going to show, my link is always there of how I teach pressure and release as well. And it's not this. This is flooding. This is shutting down.
There's a couple reasons for that. Reason number one is obviously we haven't established any communication where I could even worry about trying to crate them or anything just yet.
Jesus. You haven't established any trust whatsoever. Now you want to lock them up in a cage? Obviously I'm not a fan of crates. They can be used properly. Everyone says properly. But, I don't think a dog should be in there more than 3 hours at a time. Maybe overnight is one thing, but you got to make sure that they're mentally exhausted, physically exhausted. They've had time to run around and play and get all their pees and potties out. But these guys would probably be a disaster. Or you'd never be able to get them out of the crate.
Reason number two is I want to see as I work one dog and not the other, and vice versa.
I would work with the male.
Who's more attached to who?
Because she is more attached to him. You wouldn't even need to leash on her.
And right now we saw when I was working with Seven, the bigger boy here, she was comfortable just existing in her fear over in the corner. She didn't feel like she
existing in her fear. Okay, so he apparently is more attached to her. But if you were to walk him and let her drag her leash, now that she knows that you're just a crazy person, she would probably follow him. Or again, you can walk them both because he would be leading and she would follow.
Be next
or
to
vice
him every
versa.
time. Where Seven, on the other hand, right now, as I'm working her, is 100.
She's not learning anything, by the way. She is not learning anything other than I get choked and it hurts, so I'm following in my learned helplessness state of mind. I'm trying to please this crazy person so they don't hurt me. That's all that's going on.
Percent following her around everywhere she goes. Now we know they have some protective issues over each other, so that's something I'm being mindful of as I'm working with them, and I'm kind of observing body language.
You're not observing squat, because if you actually observed it, you wouldn't be doing what you're doing.
Seems like they're acting a little funny or anything like that.
Acting a little funny, like what? Like this is not acting funny. For him, he means they look like they're gonna bite, and he's a pussy, and he's afraid of it, so he's gonna, make sure that they don't have the ability to come hurt him, but he can do whatever the hell he wants to these dogs.
But ultimately, we got to start getting somewhere with this and establishing some sort of communication skills.
All he worries about is establishing communication skills in the form of a leash so I can correct you. And he doesn't care about trust. He doesn't care about actually communicating with the dog in a way the dog understands. God, these poor little things. But look, he's getting results. It doesn't matter. How does he get those results? He chokes the dog. He forces her to move. The only way she gets to breathe and gets a break from that choking, which thank God it's a martingale and not actual choke chain or a slip lead, as I guarantee he's going to be using later on. He already got rid of the harnesses. The owner took them with him. The only way she gets released that choking and pressure, that's the only way she learns. That's how the results happen. The dog is still not learning anything other than I follow you because otherwise I get hurt. Jesus, she's not allowed to sniff, she's not allowed to sit.
What we should see is as she starts to rehearse putting the brakes on here and there, that it takes significantly less pressure.
He talks about rehearsing, not I am stopping because I am afraid. I don't want to keep moving. I want to find a corner to hide in because this is all new to me and scary. The lights could be creating a reflection. It could cause shadow. It could cause all sorts of things that can make them more spooky. But he doesn't care. He just cares about results. That's it.
Get her to start moving with me. pressure's on. Holding pressure steady. There we go.
Jesus, dude. If you like him, go follow him. Go support him. Not impressive. So, this is part 1. Apparently there's part 2 that shows more, I don't know, more results. He didn't fix squat, in my opinion. He made it worse. He has no trust with these dogs. He doesn't understand dogs. He just understands force. He is a one-track mind that is, I am just going to get these dogs to listen to the leash. Nothing more. Nothing less. That's it. So, thanks for watching. Hope you all got something from this video. Believe it or not, this is actually the tame version of it. I did do one earlier, and I was much more riled up. And I didn't like how it turned out. So, tried to redo it. This was much more tame, and yeah, I get worked up because I hate when people take advantage of dogs like this, and even other people. He's taking advantage of the owner, and the owner is just clueless anyway. So, that's what I think. If you like him, then please continue watching him. So thanks again. Hope you all are doing well. Go say hi to your own little critters. Say howdy do for me. Give them some kind of loving. Until then, practice patience, peace, and positivity.